assistant professor at the American University in the Emirates. She joins us now from Dubai. Good evening to you, Dr. Alsaied. Thank you for being with us. So, as you just heard, several things going on at once. There are signs that the nuclear deal is falling apart, although I must point out that is not the first time we have heard that. But at the same time, the US seems to be making overtures to Riyadh. What is your analysis of what is going on?
Well, my analysis to this step forwarded by the Biden administration towards Saudi Arabia is all interrelated. We couldn't analyze it without going back to the Biden administration actions from the very first day and during the time of the presidential campaign. Honestly speaking, the United States has not experienced this much confusion in its foreign policy since its inception, as much as was what is happening under this administration. Tense relations with allies and partners, call it the Arab Gulf states, Egypt, and even Israel. After a year and a half of confusion, the administration is trying to correct the mistakes that have shaken with its allies, and what is making it even more urgent is that Ukrainian crisis. Now we can see more U.S. delegates after another landed in Riyadh, but the question is, will restoring confidence be easy for the Saudis? So accordingly, it is honestly, it's not easy for the Saudis to forget the Biden's election campaign speech about his intention to turn Saudi Arabia into pariah state. He also invested in what was known as the Khashoggi case in the media and in politics. In addition, Riyadh and also UAE have not yet recovered from the effects of removing the Houthi militia from terrorist lists and its repeated bombing of civilian targets in Saudi Arabia and UAE. So it is all accumulation of many things. So now in Riyadh, the issue is not only being approached by the Biden administration, but it is an issue of style and a partnership that the Biden administration has not respected. I mentioned several times, Laura, that this zigzag U.S. foreign policy between one administration and another can cause the U.S. loss of its most important allies. Also, this double standard foreign policy is also damaging and emphasizing on human rights principle when it comes to the Gulf and having a closing eye when it comes to Iran. And the language of interest is the one that is practiced by the Biden administration when it comes to Iran. And so accordingly, all of this is misleading and losing the trust between the U.S. historic allies. So accordingly, what happened? The Arab Gulf states, which were historic allies to the U.S., now automatically they are diversifying their allies. So even with these kind of approaches, like the Gulf, including Saudi Arabia, couldn't just dump China and Russia because of the new U.S. approach. But it can work.
I'm sorry to cut in, but we're running out of time. I want to get your view, though, on where Israel fits into all of this, because the transfer of these two islands to Saudi control can't happen without the green light from Israel. Do you see a closer relationship between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and what will that look like?
Well, we just heard about what the Saudi Arabian Foreign Minister, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, said in the World Economic Forum 2 days ago, that the kingdom's stance regarding normalization with Israel didn't change, despite recent unconfirmed media reports suggesting otherwise. So he said, we always envisioned that there will be full normalization with Israel. And he mentioned full normalization with Israel will bring benefits to the region, but that won't be on the expense on the Palestinian issue. So that was the foreign minister declaration in the World Economic Forum lately, just 2 days ago. However, I just want to mention this important part.
Sure.
The Saudis are watching carefully the impact of the Abraham Accord on the U.S., especially UAE relations. So basically, when steps like this were happened, even after signing the Abraham Accord, for example, removing the Houthis list from the terrorist list, the attack that happened by the militias, freezing even weapons, selling weapons to the UAE. So the Saudis will automatically be saying, what will I be gaining afterwards? So it is so so important to see the impact of the Abraham Accord on the US-UAE relations in order the Saudis will go a step forward on it, because the Saudis' normalization with Israel is very, very sensitive and more critical than UAE, Bahrain, or even definitely more than Morocco. So that's very important.
Dr. Najat Alsaied, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your insight there.
Thank you.